I want to tell you another story, and I thought about trying to do it as this person, but I just decided that I probably couldn't do it justice. So I just want to tell you a story. I want to give you a little heads up, though, about what's going to happen. I think you guys have shown your ability to follow directions, so I'm going to give you a little bit here. I'm going to tell this story. Then we're going to show a little video which relates to the story. As soon as the video's over, I'm going to close in prayer. And at the end of the prayer, I will say words some of you are very familiar with. I will say, go with God. But that doesn't mean that that's the moment you leave. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, at the end of our service, as part of our service, we go back to the tables. And we have a chance to kind of process and talk and just chat, just get to know each other over some snacks. And so after the prayer, when I say go with God, just quietly get your chairs and head back to the tables. I'm not going to make any other announcements, but we'll just let you do that. Table leaders, you know what to do and hand out the cards and lead the discussion, but I just wanted you to know that's where we're going. This is a story about a poet, an American poet named Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Longfellow got married, a woman named Frances, he called her Fanny. He got married to Fanny on July 13th, 1843. His first son, Charles, was born a year later, almost exactly a year later, the first of 5 children. In 1861, everything changed for everybody. That was the year the Civil War began. And for Longfellow, it was like watching all his dreams and aspirations for his country become completely split and melt into nothing. He was torn apart as the country was torn apart. But it changed for him in another way too. That same year, just a few months after the beginning of the Civil War, his wife wrote in her journal that it was so hot, that the days were so hot, and she yearned for a breeze. And she wrote about how her daughter, Edith, that her long hair had become too heavy in the heat for her, and she decided to cut her beautiful curls. So the next day, Fanny was cutting her daughter's curls, and she decided to preserve the curls that she cut in sealing wax. And so she was melting some wax, and without noticing it, unbeknownst to her, she spilled some on her dress. Her dress caught on fire. She ran to the room where Longfellow was working in his office on whatever his latest writing was. He grabbed a rug and he tried to beat the fire out, but it was too small. So he hugged her. He didn't know what else to do, so he hugged her. He burned his face and his arms severely. Some of you have maybe seen pictures of Longfellow with a full beard. The beard was not his choice. It was because he was unable to shave from that day forward. But it was all to no avail. His wife died. This was very near Christmas. As he wrote in his journal the next Christmas, he said, "How inexpressibly sad are the holidays. I can make no record of these days. Better to leave them wrapped in silence. Perhaps someday God will give me peace." A Merry Christmas, say the children. But that is no more for me. In 1863, Longfellow received word that a bullet had gone through his son Charles and shattered his spine. Their prognosis was that he would be dead within a week. There was no entry in Longfellow's journal for that Christmas. All we can anticipate is that as he looked at the Civil War which rent his country, as he looked at the death of his wife and now the impending death of his son Charles, he could find nothing in Christmas to give him hope. He looked at Christmas and said, how could this thing which happened so many years ago, how does it relate to what's happening today? How does the Prince of Peace touch upon my experience of a country at war with itself? How does the resurrection and the life speak to me who have lost a wife and a son? And he wrote nothing. But in 1864, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow has one entry in his journal. It's a poem. It's a poem he titled Christmas Bells. A poem which became so popular that it has been turned into a song with a different tune not once, not twice, but now 3 times. A poem which speaks of a healing that occurred somewhere, at some time. In the poem, in the words of the song, in the words of the poem, you can almost see the healing happen as he writes. He starts in despair and ends in hope. It is true that in 1864 the war was drawing to a close. It's also true that his son Charles did not die. Perhaps these things spurred the hope. But whether they did or not, I want you to listen to the words of this song. I want you to think about the story. I want you to recognize that the Christmas of long ago does apply to you today, because God is not dead, and he does not sleep.